श्रीभगवानुवाच सन्न्यासकर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरावुभौ तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात् कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते.
Renunciation and the path of action both lead to the highest bliss. But between the two, the path of action surpasses renunciation of action. Now, this is an example where Krishna is answering Arjuna directly. This is not a universal truth for everybody. And why is he doing that? Because Arjuna is in a state. See, most of the Bhagavad Gita, most of the Indian scriptures are Upadesha. Upadesha is advice. Advice based on sequence of thought, a logical sequence of thought that leads to a rational conclusion. And anybody who thinks rationally would arrive at the same conclusion. But there are some people who, either because of temporary confusion, like in Arjuna's case, or inability to think, lack of intellectual stamina, do not think or are incapable of thinking. Such people need what they call adesha. Adesha means commandments. And this is a verse in which Krishna is just touching on this commandment, because he says between the two, the path of action is better. For whom is the question? For Arjuna. So now how do you decide which of the two to follow? As I said earlier, we all get into this dilemma. What to do? Should I go out there and act? Or should I withdraw and do research, do thinking, contemplation, strategize? Even in running an organization, you have a sales force that goes out and talks to people and sells. But that is based on a body of knowledge, a body of people who strategize, who think and say, how are we going to promote it? How are we going to position our product? So on and so forth. So even in business life, you have this dilemma. What do you do? How do you decide that? He speaks of two kinds of people. And these two kinds of people are, one, people who have just embarked on the spiritual path. They are novices. They're still full of desires. Such people should follow the path of action. Arjuna belongs to this category. He's a dynamic person. He's a man of action. He's a wonderful person. But he's not yet reached the state of a sannyasi, a person who's well established, who has already overcome the bulk of his desires, and he's left with very few desires. And these few desires are to reach the state of realization, to serve humanity, to serve the whole world, and things like that. So when you are a pro, when you're well established, then you're a sannyasi, and you follow the path of renunciation or the path of knowledge. How do we decide which of the two to follow? Let's take a look at the three transactions that each of us follow in life. Every human being receives stimuli from the world. What stimuli do you receive? Through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. These stimuli, they enter through the sense organs, and they are transmitted to the sense center in the mind, at the level of the mind and intellect. There is a reaction between the stimulus that has entered you and the desires that you already have. So, the stimulus being the same, different people react differently to it. For instance, let's say a new car has been launched, or a new ice cream has come in the market. Different people will react differently to it. So it depends, your response depends on the stimulus that enters you and it reacts with the desires that are already in your mind. So, for a novice, a karma yogi who's still full of desires, what happens is stimuli enter. You can't help that. But then, because he's full of desires, he's reacting to almost every stimulus that enters him and responding, acting. So, let's say you're watching news on TV and you belong to this category. Periodically, there are commercial breaks. So, in that commercial break, as we said earlier, you see a new car that is being launched. If you belong to this category, then you have a desire for a car and there's something happening, there's a reaction within you, and you say, let me go test drive this car. So you're acting on it. The next is, maybe jewelry. You have a desire for it, there is a reaction, there is a response. You say, tomorrow I want to go and see it, what it's like. Third, you must help me. Mobile, yes. Mobile phones are, Deepika Padukone is advertising a particular thing. So you say, my mobile is 2 years old and it's damaged, so let me go. So now what's happening? Almost every stimulus that enters you, there is a response in your mind and there's a reaction in your mind and you respond to it by action. Suppose you are at the state where you don't have desires for them. You're sitting there watching news. First, launch of a new car. You're very happy with your car. You have no desire to buy a new car. The ad registers with you. You understand what it's about. But because you have no desire, there is no reaction and no response to that particular stimulus. Next, what did we say? Sorry? Jewelry. Jewelry, there are some people who say, the day I got married, my mother gave me jewelry. After that, finished. That's it. No desire. So nothing happens. There's no reaction, no response. Third, mobile phone. Here is a person who has the first mobile phone that was launched by, Nokia. And is not interested in changing. So no desire, no reaction, no response. What will such a person do? So you see, the earlier person, the novice, a person who has lots of desires, the bulk of his life revolves around just responses, action. If he wants to turn spiritual, what must he do? He must convert action into worship. Karma yoga. Take the second. Here is a person who nothing seems to motivate him. It doesn't mean that he's an inactive person. He may be very active, but he decides how to act. He's not simply responding to what's happening in the world. So the bulk of his life revolves around just receipt of stimuli. The world enters him and dies. That's it. There is nothing happening. The world cannot provoke such a person into activity. He's a mature, steady, inward-looking person. What will he do if he wants to become more spiritual? What does he have to do? Convert receipts into worship. Jnana yoga, knowledge, contemplation, renunciation. That is it. So now, let's take a look at, if this is not clear, let's take an example. In a chemistry lab, there are 2 test tubes. One test tube already has a chemical in it. The second test tube, as you can see here, is empty. When you take a concentrated sulfuric acid, let's say, and put it into both the test tubes. You put it in the first one, which has a chemical in it. You put a few drops into the test tube and there is an effervescence, there's a reaction and effervescence. You got to be careful that it doesn't spill onto your fingers. The second test tube, which is empty, you pour as much acid as you want, what happens? No reaction, no effervescence, nothing. There is just calmness there. That is the difference between a person with a yogi who has a lot of desires, is like the test tube with a chemical in it, and a sannyasi is like a test tube with no chemical in it. The world enters him, no reaction, no response. That's what it is.